for us.
Yeah, our next guest is a Missouri State University Athletics Hall of Famer, the sixth leading scorer in school history for basketball with 1,691 points. That's the most by anyone with fewer than 4 years. Also the career leader in free throws attempted and made, number 2 in block shots, key member of the 1999 Bears Sweet 16 team from St. Louis, Missouri. Danny Moore joins us on the show. Danny, thanks for your time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Danny Moore. Boy, does that name ever bring back some great memories down here. Danny, you been doing all right, buddy?
Oh, I've been doing okay, just up here in St. Louis. I work for BJC Healthcare now, but what seems to keep me busy is my daughter, who's in the 8th grade now. I coach her basketball team, and they seem to be doing pretty well right now. So, but with all the complications with coronavirus and everything, that keeps us on our toes on when we can play and when we can't play and where we play and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say to limit the usual travel schedule for summer ball, and how you like that coaching part of it?
I really enjoyed coaching my daughter. I get to watch her, keep improving, and she has to listen to me because I'm her coach. She may get tired of listening to my voice a little bit. But yeah, I really enjoy watching her develop and grow as a player.
Well, what kind of player is she? Is she going to be a tall player like you and who can score, or what kind of skills does she have?
So right now she's not short. She's about 5'10", I think, going to be 5'11" here shortly in the 8th grade. So she does a little bit of everything. She is what I call my X factor right now. She blocks shots, she rebounds, she defends. She kind of does a little bit of everything, and so I really appreciate that as a coach. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. See a few more years and see how high school progresses and everything. But right now, just having fun coaching her.
When she does go to high school, Danny, where will it be?
It'll be Francis Howell.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look for them then.
Did the Lady Bears just get someone from Francis Howell North or something? I think they just got somebody here around Francis Howell. But
that may very well be. I know they announced their recruiting class the other day, and I think Francis Howell North was in there for one of the schools. So that bodes well. The scouts know what's going on.
Well,
there you go.
Well, Ned, it just shows more and more our age and how time marches on. We're talking to Danny, a guy who we covered at one of the Bears' great runs, now talking about his daughter having great athletic skills. But, Danny, it's hard to believe it's been 22 years since you and the Bears went on that Sweet 16 run, beating Wisconsin and Tennessee before losing to number 1 ranked Duke in the Sweet 16 round. What's your favorite memory, though, from that postseason? Is there something that stands out above all others?
It seems like yesterday when you bring up that and the fight song and everything, as Ned was saying. But the one thing, obviously, making the tournament, Selection Sunday, that stands out. But then not just making the tournament, but actually going far into it. And I'd have to say that the Tennessee win, when we started beating Tennessee on that second half, and we got up by 30 points, and just the joy of knowing, you're going to the Sweet 16, you can kind of relax towards the end of the game, you're having a lot of fun, all that hard work finally paid off after all of those years, and you can kind of sit back and enjoy the end of that game as you're beating the Volunteers by 30.
That was, that was such a magic Sunday afternoon, and I wasn't there. Personally, I was in Fort Collins, Colorado, covering the Lady Bears, who were out there playing in a regional at Fort Collins. So we saw the game. We watched the game, which was shown out there from what's commonly known as an establishment, Danny. And it was it was a great show.
Well, I was there, and my biggest memory from that is Ken Stringer banking in that three-pointer right as the halftime buzzer went off. And it was right then that you knew good and well you guys could go ahead and make your reservations for East Rutherford.
Oh, absolutely. Everything was going our way. I mean, Ken was banking in that almost a half-court three-point shots. I mean, I think that, Tennessee just, honestly, they probably just kind of looked past us that year. And so, yeah, we You know, it was that was a very fond memory, I would say, of the Sweet 16.
Duke did not at the Byrne Arena in East Rutherford. They were ready to play. Of course, you're not going to run into a Duke team that's not ready to play. Krzyzewski wouldn't allow something like that. But when you got out there and started competing with them, what went through your mind? And I know you can't speak for the other Bears, but what was the overall mindset going into a packed arena like that and knowing fully well the significance of the game?
You know, I think I would say what's going through your head is that you're playing a very good team. They were the number one overall seed. Everybody had watched them on TV. So your first mindset was, you know, can you play with this team? And so I think once we start playing with the team, I guess the next mindset was, well, let's see, how far can we take it once you know that you can play with the team? You know, I will say the one thing that stood out to me when I was playing them at first was just how big and athletic they were at that time, because you had Corey Maggette, you know, who was playing guard at like 6'7", going through the lane where you weren't quite used to that in the Missouri Valley, and you had Elton Brand and Shane Battier, and just their size and athletic ability kind of got to us at first. At least it seemed to surprise me a little bit, but then once we got to playing, it didn't seem that bad at all. It's just that if you look back at that game, you know, we just weren't making shots. I think Kevin Alt missed some, you know, open three-point shots, and we just didn't take advantage of some of the things that you need to take advantage when you're playing a team like that.
Well, I think Duke had 5 guys who wound up being first-round draft choices, so that was one of the most talented teams. They ended up not winning the tournament that year. I think UConn won it, but man, that was probably as talented a team as anybody's ever seen.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't. I think they lost to Richard Hamilton and Jake Bosco and a lot of good UConn players that year.
Yeah, hey, you and I have talked about this before. Back when I was in the newspaper business, I wrote about this. But the year before, you guys had a lot of talent, and it just didn't mesh together quite as well. And then the next year, you guys were able to come back and put it together. What was the difference in that your senior year, the Sweet 16 team that maybe was missing from that team the year before?
You know, I think I tell this to people. It's chemistry. I truly believe chemistry makes up the majority of the good basketball teams. You know, if you look at my first year where we made the NIT tournament and went to NC State and we were on the bubble, you know, we weren't as talented as we were probably the next 2 years. And yet we had a very good chemistry, played well. The next year it seemed like everybody started to go their own separate ways, and the chemistry just for, you know, whatever, just was not there in the locker room. And then that last year, the chemistry just came back, and a little bit, you know, we had the talent more than my sophomore year, and the chemistry makes or breaks teams. And, you know, I've seen it with the current Missouri State teams. It just doesn't seem like it. The chemistry is always there, and I don't know if it's, you know, the JUCO transfers or this or that. It seems like there's just something missing with the meshing there. But definitely chemistry. I would give it to that.
When you talk about that, Danny, what influence back in the era when you won? What influence was there by Coach Alford? How did he try to bring you guys together, and did he in fact succeed in doing that?
You know, I think that he did. I think he made some changes from my junior year to the senior year. But, I mean, he tried. By junior year, we would have sessions. We tried to play games or do some other stuff, but it just didn't seem to work. And, you know, I think the senior year he brought in some players and some players left. And in the end, just those minor tweaks and changes just really contributed to everything. And I do think other players, you know, you had a really good group of seniors. You know, I think, you know, I was a senior. Ken Stringer was a senior. You had Paul Morans and Butch Chamba was a senior. I mean, we had a really strong class of seniors, whether they got playing time or they were on the bench. It was just all for one the whole time. So there was never any animosity or anything, and it was a really good group of players and seniors, and it just seemed to fit perfect.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much ownership do players take in those situations of the team? Because a coach can do what coaches do, but it comes down to players a lot of times leading themselves, and you know, guys behind the scenes, maybe like a Ken Stringer, who is kind of an strung guy who didn't have the stats, but he seemed to be a very strong leader behind the scenes. And of course, Paul Moran's a guy like that who didn't play a lot, but I know he was a big leader for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's huge on a team. Whether you've got a defensive leader like Ken Stringer who may not have the stats to go along, with the scoring and everything, yet he's there game in, game out, leading the team. And then maybe you have Paul Moran or somebody else that doesn't get as much playing time, but every basket they're cheering us on and everything else, and knowing that if something happens that they're ready to come in and play as well. And it's huge for a team, I think, at least from what I've seen, whether it's playing in high school, college, or even overseas. I've seen it everywhere. So you can have a talented team, but if it doesn't mesh, the talent can only take you so far most of the time from what I've seen.
Danny, I know that when you come down here, you get a chance to hook up with Fauntleroy, and even though he was before you, Kelby Stuckey and people of that caliber, and hey, you can exchange a whole lot of good stories doing that. But do you keep in touch with any of the other members of the team and perhaps with Coach Alford?
Yeah, we've had a group meet chat to where we keep in touch. In fact, I just had my birthday the other day, and Coach Alford wished me a happy birthday. He joked around about how old I'm getting, and I had to remind him, he's always going to be older than me in the long run. So, but yeah, we keep in touch with a lot of the players and everything. We just had the reunion where almost everybody came down from the team with that, and then like you said, I try to keep in touch with other players from other teams and eras, like Kelby Stuckey. I love listening to Kelby Stuckey and his stories, and then Will I keep in close contact. But yeah, absolutely, it's nice. I think it's Butch went to Belgium, and we lost track of Butch, but he might have been the only one that we haven't kept in contact with.
Danny, who else are in the Valley at that time that you played against that maybe you enjoyed going against, or was a particular challenge? As you look around the league, who comes to mind in that regard?
I would say over the years we had our challenges with Illinois State. Illinois State was always a very competitive game, especially my sophomore and junior year, where they went on to the NCAA tournament with Rico Hill and oh man, I can't remember all their names offhand right now. Creighton was always a battle. You had Rodney Buford. Wichita State, that's just a crazy place to play at with all their players. And then towards my last year, you had Evansville with Marcus Wilson, who was also a very good player. So we had a lot of challenges back then. And actually our last year was really well. We had 3 teams make the tournament with Creighton, Evansville, and ourselves. So it was very competitive, and the game in or a day in and day out were pretty. You had to be on your toes and be ready to play.
Okay, I'm going to take and jog your memory just a little bit. You mentioned Evansville and Marcus Wilson. I think I've got the right guy. Late in the ball game, it's really competitive back and forth, and he takes a jump shot from the corner that hits the rim and bounces straight up into the air and goes back into the basket. And I think that was the winner, if I'm not mistaken. It was just we had it on television that night. That was just a nerve-wracking game and loss. Do you remember that game and how you reacted to it?
Oh, yeah, that game, I remember that game. That's one of them that I probably won't forget, because if I remember correctly, that was a game, if we beat Evansville, then we share the conference title with Evansville, and it's at Evansville. And I remember one of the refs I didn't like. He was reffing that game, but we won't go into that. But
I know who you're talking about, too.
And I thought, it's going to be a long night. And then every time I caught the ball, I was surrounded by 3 or 4 people. And I remember talking to Marcus Wilson one day after that, and he said, yeah, every time you caught the ball, our coach said, Cruz at the time, said, we send everybody at you except for the guy guarding Kevin Alt, and he stays with Kevin. And I'm like, oh, that explains it. So I was. I remember it because at the very end, I thought, man, we've got a good chance to win. I think it went to overtime, and Marcus Wilson, from the corner, hits the rim, bounces up. Does it hit the top of the backboard or something, and then fall in? But it was like it was a weird front of the rim, and you thought, oh, he missed it, and then because of that shot, we end up losing the game, and it was that was a heartbreaking one to lose at the end because that was part of the conference championship there.
Danny, I know you still try to stay in contact and up to date with the current Bears and probably watch a lot of their games on TV last season. A guy like Gage Prim, maybe he doesn't have the height that you had, but are his offensive skills somewhat similar to what you were doing back in your day?
You know, what I like about him is his fundamentals. If you watch his fundamentals, the way that he posts up and uses his body, he does it very, very well. And he gets to the free throw line too. I've seen. I think his biggest thing is staying healthy, and I think just him with his fundamentals and moving and everything. I think he's got a lot of potential.
Well, he's a guy who is not afraid to use the backboard, bank shots, and that sort of thing. Kind of have an old school game, kind of like the game that you played back in the day. How do you think your game would have translated to today's college basketball? You probably would have been allowed to shoot a lot more 3-pointers back than you were back then.
Yeah, I know. Anytime I got a chance to shoot a three, I definitely shot threes back then. And actually, believe it or not, towards the end of it, when we were playing in Tennessee, I made 2 3-pointers. I think it wasn't until the end of my career that we started doing more plays to getting me more outside rather than just posting up. I mean, I did so well posting up, but then I could also shoot from the outside. So, I think, I think you're right. Given the game today, you'd see me doing more inside-outside with that. And so I think that's how it would translate. I think I'd still post up a lot. I'd do more pick and rolls with some pops, with shooting more outside. And doing more of that, I could, honestly, I think it would still be fine. I haven't seen such a large change to where, there would be something that says, oh, well, I can't play at that level or whatever. But I would say that due to my outside shooting and everything where you see it going, I think that I'd probably still be just fine.
Danny, tell the folks a little bit after you left Missouri State. Did you continue playing basketball and where?
I did. I continued playing mainly in Spain, so went to Spain for about 4 years, and then my current wife now, Shauna, she came with me, and it was after my second year we ended up getting married. Stayed in Spain for a while, then came back to get my master's degree at Missouri State, and then moved up here to St. Louis, where my wife is from, and have twins, a boy and a girl. And so that's where we're at now.
We've heard about the girl being a good ball player. How about the young man?
He played basketball for a while, but I think he's more into to running. He's more of a long distance runner than he is the basketball. I think maybe my daughter Danielle maybe got all the aggressiveness, whereas he's competitive. He just. Whereas my daughter, where she'll probably elbow you in the face and want to break your nose, whereas he's probably more of the individual type sports rather than the team and the aggressive type sports. So, but he still likes to compete.
Hey, we got a text message from a listener wanting you to reflect on the win over Mizzou in November of 1998, that magical game in Columbia where you guys beat the Tigers.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great. The whole year had some really great wins, but that win to this day people talk about all the time. That was Norm's last year. Mizzou actually had a really good team that year. They made the NCAA tournament, and I remember going up there, and you start looking around, and all of us, we thought that we were going to win. There is no doubt in our mind that we were going to win. And just once again, as we start playing, we take the lead. We're doing awesome. They had very talented players. They had, I will say, Monty Harge, who I played against, may still be the largest individual I played against. I just was happy that he was didn't have the mentality of Shaq, because I tried to put both of my hands on him and he would not budge. And I was like, this could be a long night. But they had Albert White, who was a very good offensive player. You had Keon Dooling, who was only a freshman, I believe, but super athletic. Had a nice dunk on us that game. But our aggressiveness and I played well, and of course nobody will ever forget, Will Fauntleroy's dunk, to where he stole the ball and Albert White on a fast break. Albert White tries to block it. And I don't think Will saw him at first up until the very end, and then by that time it was too late for Albert, because Will did his signature one-handed tomahawk dunk on top of him. So, yeah, that was that was a pretty memorable game. I did talk to who was it? Brian Grauer, I believe he was the point guard for Mizzou, and he said that Norm was he was so bad they ran the whole next practice the next day.
No wonder Mizzou hasn't played Missouri State since, I guess.
I know. I think I see that they're supposed to play, or they were supposed to play again this year. So I don't know if that's still on or not.
Fell through. That fell through, unfortunately. I think Konzo wanted to do it, and someone above his scale said no. Put a veto on that.
Oh no!
Yeah. In fact, we had him. We had talked quite a bit about it, and had in fact made some interviews along those lines, and had gone on the air and so forth and so on. And then all of a sudden, it disappeared. Yep. What a surprise!
Oh no! I thought that was a for sure thing. I'm disappointed.
We did too. But hey, those things happen. That's part of sports and part of politics. You talked about your daughter being in 8th grade, and we put out a magazine, which you may or may not remember, Danny. But every year we take pictures of the young high school players who are going to be stars. This one will sober you up pretty quickly. One of our newcomers of the year, I think she's a junior, if I'm not mistaken, from West Plains, is a young lady with the surname of Judd. And yes, it's Eric's daughter.
Oh, wow.
And she's a fine player.
Can she shoot threes like Eric?
We're about to find out. Well, we hope you're able to make I hope the situation is such that you can make the trek down here sometime during the course of the season, because we always enjoy visiting with you, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Danny, thanks so much for coming on with us, man.
Yep, nope, thanks for having me.